So, Prisma 3D, the best 3D animation app for Android devices, which has really come a long way since it first released, and it's fair to say the community has made a lot of decent animation with this app, which cuts across almost all art styles and themes. But things are now changing as we now have a few new apps which gives us some variety for how things can be done in the mobile platform. And using these new tools, I'll be recreating some of the older Prisma animation on newer engines. And for this video, I'll be starting with one of the first few Prisma 3D animations I saw before I actually decided to take the app seriously. And it was a little car animation made by Harnai Digital. You can check out his channel, his link is in the description. Anyways, I'm not actually the first to try recreating this particular animation, as Panda Pixel actually did something similar. But I'm going to be doing mine in Reconn 4D. After watching the scene again, I realized it wasn't actually an original scene as he made it off a reference. So I took a screenshot of that reference and imported it into Reconn 4D. Then I simply went into Google to download some of the textures I was going to need, like the road and some normal maps. Then for the actual road mesh, I just extruded the edge a few times and used this tool to fix the texture. And after that, I created a copy of that road mesh and put a cube in between. And getting this cube to look like sand was one of the hard parts. So the first method I tried was to subdivide the mesh several times, then distort it a little. Then when I actually saw what it was going to look like on a larger scale, I realized that was not the way to go, since adding more polygons would just make it lag. So I decided to try something else, which was a far more basic approach of simple mesh distortion and a normal map. Then I realized it didn't actually look that bad, so I decided to do it on a larger scale for the roadside sand. Then the next thing we had to worry about were the trees. So for this, I just decided to do the same thing I did for the sand but on the sphere instead, which is just randomly selecting some faces and scaling it randomly. And this is what it looked like after adding some color. And to make this better, I just decided to use the same ambience trick I explained in a previous video. And I did lose a few corrupted clips, but all I did was to duplicate the trees and give them some tree trunks and maybe some street lights too. Then I imported some car models that I downloaded from Sketchfab and I littered them around the scene so it doesn't look empty and plain. Yet it still looked empty and plain, and that was mostly because there was nothing in the distance, so I decided to just fill it up with fog instead. Then I set the color to brown, or at least something that will match the color of dust. Then after that, I set up a few structures to make it look like they were actually buildings in the fog. And after that, this is what it looked like. Although this is not the vehicle used in the reference, this is what I'm going to be using for this scene. So I just scaled and placed it in the scene to match the scale of everything else and did some basic car animation.